The night was warm and heavy with the smell of charcoal smoke drifting from food stalls. Amina sat by the doorway of her father's house, her chin resting on her knees, listening to the distant music of drums from the neighbor's courtyard. She had always loved this sound, but that evening her heart felt like it was caught in a fist. Her stepmother's voice echoed in her ears, sharp and final. "You must leave this house. I will not feed another mouth that brings me nothing but trouble." Amina's father had stood nearby, silent, his face turned away. He had been growing more distant since he remarried, and though she searched his eyes for mercy, he offered none. Amina was just 17, with only a small bag of clothes and the scarf her late mother had left her. She walked away from the only home she had ever known, the sound of the drums following her into the night until it faded into silence. The first days on her own were cruel. She had no place to sleep except under a broken veranda at the edge of the marketplace. At dawn she rose with the traders, sweeping dust from the front of stalls in exchange for a piece of yam or a handful of ground nuts. Hunger became a constant ache, and she learned to silence it with water. Still, she carried herself with quiet dignity, never begging, never lowering her head too long. The market women noticed her persistence. One of them, Mama Tayo, gave her a tray of fried dough to sell on commission. Amina balanced the tray on her head and called out to passers-by with a clear, musical voice that surprised even her. By evening she had sold every piece, and though the profit was small, it was hers. She used it to buy a bar of soap, because she refused to let poverty strip away her cleanliness. Days turned into weeks. Amina became a familiar figure in the market, selling snacks, fetching water, helping stall owners fold their cloth at sunset. She was polite, hard-working, and her smile carried a light that softened even the hardest customers. But the nights were still long and lonely, and she often wrapped herself in her mother's scarf, whispering to it as if it could whisper back. She dreamed not of riches, but of a roof of her own, a bed where she could sleep without fear of being chased away. She dreamed of sewing, the craft her mother had once taught her before illness took her life. In the market, she often paused by the tailor's corner, watching the old man's hands move with precision, the whir of the sewing machine like a heartbeat. She longed for a chance to sit at that machine, to turn fabric into beauty. Her chance came one afternoon when the tailor, Baba Sani, noticed her watching. "Girl, do you want to learn?" he asked, his voice rough with age. Amina's heart leapt. She nodded quickly. He let her sweep the shop and run errands, and in return he taught her small things: how to thread a needle, how to stitch a straight line, how to cut fabric by measuring with the eyes when no tape was available. Amina's fingers were quick, her attention sharp. Within months she could mend torn shirts and sew simple dresses. Customers began asking for her work, and Baba Sani paid her a little from each job. She saved every coin in a small tin box she hid beneath the floorboards of the shop. For the first time since being thrown out, she felt a seed of hope sprouting inside her. One hot Saturday, the marketplace buzzed louder than usual. A convoy of sleek black cars rolled in, drawing stares and whispers. From one of the cars stepped a tall man in a crisp white shirt, dark sunglasses shielding his eyes. He was surrounded by aides carrying tablets and clipboards, and people murmured his name as if it were sacred. David, the billionaire philanthropist who had built schools and hospitals across the region. He was visiting the market as part of a program to support small businesses. Many traders rushed forward, eager to present their goods, their voices rising in desperate chorus. Amina stayed back, sewing at her corner. She had no polished speech, no stall full of merchandise to display. She was just a girl with a needle, fabric scraps, and a dream. But fate has a way of finding those who quietly persist. As Mr. David walked by, he noticed her bent over a dress, her hands moving with practiced grace. He paused, watching the concentration on her face, the neatness of her stitches. "Whose work is this?" he asked. Baba Sani smiled proudly. "This girl," he said, "thrown out by her family, yet she works harder than anyone here." Amina looked up, startled to find the billionaire's gaze upon her. She felt heat rush to her cheeks, but she did not lower her eyes. Mr. David picked up the dress she was working on, examining it closely. "This is fine work," he said. "Where did you learn?" Amina's voice trembled, but she answered honestly. She told him about her mother's teachings, her stepmother's cruelty, her nights on the street, and how she found her way to Baba Sani's shop. She did not beg for help. She simply spoke her truth. Something in her courage stirred him. He had seen countless business proposals, heard endless polished pitches, but rarely such raw determination. He asked what she wanted for her future. Amina hesitated, then said, "I want a workshop of my own, not just for me, but to train other girls who have no home, no family, no chance. I want them to use their hands to build their lives." Her words planted themselves in his heart. Days later, Amina received a letter delivered by one of his aides. It contained an invitation to a meeting at his foundation's office in the city. Fear and excitement twisted inside her as she traveled there in a crowded bus, clutching her tin box of savings as if it were a passport. The office was grand, with glass walls and polished floors that made her worn sandals feel out of place. But when she met Mr. David again, he spoke gently, asking about her vision. She explained in halting words, drawing diagrams on scrap paper, describing how even one sewing machine could change a girl's future. He listened carefully, then said, "I will support you, not with charity, but with partnership. We will build this together." True to his word, he provided her with 3 sewing machines, fabric, supplies, and a modest space in the heart of the market. He also arranged for her to attend workshops on business management, teaching her about record-keeping, pricing, and savings. At first, Amina felt overwhelmed. She had never imagined dealing with ledgers or suppliers. But she remembered the nights under the veranda, the hunger, the shame of being unwanted, and she told herself she would never go back. Slowly she learned. She trained 3 girls from the street, teaching them to sew as Baba Sani had taught her. They worked long hours, their laughter filling the shop as they stitched not only fabric but their broken spirits back together. The workshop became known for its quality and heart. Customers loved the way the clothes fit, the attention to detail, the smiles that came with each delivery. Word spread, and soon they received orders for weddings, festivals, and school uniforms. The little shop grew busier, and Amina hired more girls, giving preference to those who, like her, had been abandoned or orphaned. She paid them fairly, encouraged them to save, and reminded them daily that their worth was not defined by their past. The market women admired her, saying she had turned her pain into power. Years passed, and the workshop blossomed into a thriving business. Amina became a respected entrepreneur, her name spoken with pride in the community. She built a training center, where dozens of young women learned tailoring and business skills. She established a scholarship fund for children of widows, ensuring they could attend school without fear of being turned away for unpaid fees. The foundation of Mr. David continued to mentor her, but she no longer needed handouts. She had become self-sufficient, a leader, a beacon. One rainy season evening, Amina returned to her father's house. She had not seen him in years. Her stepmother, older now and wearier, opened the door. For a long moment, they stared at each other. The woman who had once cast her out now seemed smaller, her voice softer. "You have done well," she said quietly, almost ashamed. Amina felt old wounds stir, but she also felt a deep calm. "I survived," she replied, "and I forgave you long ago, for my own peace." Her father emerged, eyes heavy with regret. They spoke little, but sometimes silence can carry more than words. Amina left that night, not with bitterness, but with closure. Her story spread beyond her town, inspiring newspapers, radio stations, and young people across the country. She was invited to speak at conferences, to share how resilience and opportunity can transform lives. Each time she stood on a stage, she remembered the veranda where she once slept, the scarf she clutched, the hunger that gnawed at her, and she remembered the billionaire who saw her not as a beggar, but as a partner, who gave her the tools to carve her destiny. She told her audience, "Do not wait for luck, work with what you have, and when a door opens, walk through it with courage." In the end, Amina's life became a tapestry woven from struggle, kindness, and determination. She was no longer the girl thrown out by her stepmother. She was the woman who built a family out of strangers, who gave dignity to those cast aside, who turned her pain into a purpose that outlived her scars. And though the world called Mr. David a billionaire, to Amina he was something rarer, a man who believed in her when belief was the one thing she could not afford. Together, they changed not just her life, but the lives of countless others who discovered, through her, that even the sharpest rejection can become the first stitch in a garment of triumph.